We'll get started. We still have probably 100 of the registered attendees to still join us, but we can get started and people can join as it suits them. So for those that have joined us so far, just good evening to you all. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for giving up a part of your evening to listen to tonight's webinar. If you have any comments or questions throughout tonight's event, by all means, please feel free to use the Q&A facility at the bottom of your screens. And thank you to the two attendees that have sent in their thanks and well wishes already. Quick off the mark. So tonight's event is primarily about raising awareness on a few issues that are important to those of us speaking tonight, and I think have a significant impact on many of those, if not all of those, that are listening this evening. So there are a number of issues or a number of initiatives and schemes that we're going to be discussing tonight to broaden the awareness of them and to increase the support around them within the sport horse sector primarily, but a lot of what we're going to discuss tonight affects the entire equine sector, thoroughbred and sport horse. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joined by the three other gentlemen on your screen. We have Patrick Hester, who is the PRO of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. Patrick was also a former facilitator in the Equine Knowledge Transfer Program, which we will touch on later on. We have John Murphy, who is the operations manager of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. And as you'll learn later on, John's own personal situation is quite relevant to a lot of the areas that we're going to cover tonight. And then getting the last minute mouthful of tea in there is Dermot Brennan, a fellow Sligo man and a FOSS approved agricultural consultant. And as we're going to touch on later tonight, Dermot's involvement in some of Patrick's groups has had a very positive and significant impact on the income of some of Patrick's participants. So there's a few issues or a few areas that we're going to be covering tonight. Equine farming, TAMS, REPS, the knowledge transfer program, the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, and the events that are coming up this year. So what I want to do is I just want to start tonight's webinar by playing a short video, just over 2 minutes. And I think it'll set the scene nicely for what we're about to discuss. So this is a video that was done by At the Races, and it's a 2-minute snippet from an interview with Willie Mullins ahead of the Cheltenham Festival. And I think it just highlights what significant and sufficient funding and support for the equine sector can achieve. So if you just bear with me, I'm just going to play a video here, and I hope it plays for you all. Sometimes the Wi-Fi in Sligo now isn't wonderful. Oh, sorry, 1 second now. It would have helped if I had shared my screen. So apologies, 1 second now. Here we go.
I'm not getting any sound on that mic.
Oh, okay, 1 second now. the thumbs up if you can hear me, Patrick.
I can hear you good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just I can't hear at the moment, naturally, as I've said, and I haven't figured out what has caused the problem. So rather than you listen to me scramble around here trying to fix the sound, what I'm going to do, because you can still hear me, I'm going to pass you over to Patrick Hester, PRO of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. And perhaps while I fumble around with my sound and settings here, Patrick, you might just give a little background for those that aren't aware of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. Maybe
no
just
problem.
a short introduction, and then we can talk about some of the events that you have planned for this year.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, everybody, and sorry about the little bit of a technical issue, but Patrick Hester here with you. Sure, I suppose just to give people a bit of a background to the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, we're running since 2009 now. It started in a muddy field at the agricultural show in Castlereagh, County Roscommon. At the time, I had just returned from the continent, having worked there for a few years. And I just seen linear scoring of foals and young stock everywhere there. And I just thought it was an opportune time in the local show in Castlereagh to bring a few, to attract breeders to it and kind of reward them for their breeding endeavors. And I suppose from that, I thought it would be educational that the foals would be linear scored by a reputable judge inspector and actually, highlight the scoring system, linear scoring system of the performance foals to the general public. So I suppose that was the early days. It was self-financed at the time, taking cash out of the cash point machine and digging into your own pocket just to make the initiative get off the floor. And sure, I suppose we continued with it. We were often some years 4 or 5 foals struggling away at it, and I said we went on that, and it moved on from. We got a lot of inspectors in from Germany, the UK. Captain David O'Brien, now in the States, was with us on occasion as well. So yeah, it was just to reward the breeder, a day out, get some feedback, and just give them an appreciation and a bit of direction in where they want to go. I suppose to fast track it forward, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I suppose the major breakthrough for us was setting up the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. Myself, John, Mark Hester, and Noel Kilroy, and to actually set up the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. We were lucky enough in 2016 then to become part of the KT program through the Department of Agriculture. And of course, that's the focus of tonight as well. That was a farm scheme that the horse industry was allowed into and became part of. And, I've sent a recent document to HSI, and I've generated it to Michael over the past few days. When you look at farming on the Department of Agriculture website, you do see that horse breeding and production and training is part of the term farming. Okay, and that really is tonight's focus, to really highlight that and to bring it forward more, and hence Dermot here and John, just to highlight the awareness of that, and maybe at the end of this have an action plan towards more recognition for equine farming. And it's a buzzword at the moment. We see Horse Sport Ireland using it. Certainly I'm using it a lot more. I don't see any difference between breeding a Wainlin or producing a beef unit for the market. Okay, so I suppose to bring it on again, I suppose in the KT program, as I said, we were part of the KT program, the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, and it just gave us an opportunity to sit down with like-minded breeders and discuss some of the challenges. I don't do problems, I do challenges, and that's what the key to the backbone to the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group is. We don't complain. If we see something that needs to be done, we get the bloody hell on with it. Okay. I suppose the main things we seen from the KT program was that it was the marketing and promotion of our stock and to breed a better animal for the market. And there was a lot of frustration back in 2016 when we started out within the breeder group, and it really was highlighted, what could we do as a group, a forward-thinking, innovative group, to get our stock more advertised, more marketed internationally. I suppose that was the beginning of the Breeders Select Wholesale Ireland, which you're all aware of now. And now we head towards edition 4 this year. Amazingly, time flies. I suppose to bring in that it's not just me and John and Mark. There's a huge team behind all of this. And I just have to mention a few. There's Sinead, she just passed through some of the logos here now for our online marketing just this evening. There's Chloe, there's Liz Murphy, there's Caroline Tunney, there's Joe O'Brien, there's a great bunch of people. Forgive me if I've forgotten anybody, but by God, when we need help, we can get guys on the ground, and there's a great camaraderie at the grassroots level between all within the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. So big shout out to them. And I mean, the duties are cleaning the lads' toilets prior to the foal sale and dealing with customers in the States. You know, that's the scale of the jobs that goes on. And they don't mind getting down and dirty and getting the job done. And I'm delighted to be involved with everybody in it. And it's a heartening story for me anyway. So it is to be involved in it. I suppose in-house.
Just on
Yes,
that,
Mike.
Patrick, I guess where that really culminated, the working together and the quantity of support that people gave you in and outside of the group really all came to a head in 2020 with the success of edition 3. Would you mind just touching on that versus, say, edition 2 versus edition 3? What the tangible differences were, what you saw as the improvements and the results that were achieved. Based on
I was just going to mention the strategy, Michael, and there's 3 components to it. It's clear and transparent foal selection. You know, that the breeder comes out to his selection day, he knows why he's being selected, and he's given reason, and there's no issue talking to our judges and inspectors. And then I suppose it's marketing and promotion and looking after the customer base. Then, you know, we have on text message all the customers that have bought foals from the auction, and we can text them a flick of a button, as you know, nowadays. So we want to build that bond with the market, with the customer, treat them well, as you said, what are some of the tangible things that have we've improved our selection, and I think the industry has started to identify that we want a quality product turning out now, well bred, well produced, well handled. That's what the market wants, you know, I think the production has improved immensely. Certainly, I think where the group performed last year, Michael, is in our platform. You know, can I swear on this platform? You know, the shit was hitting the fan last year with the whole COVID situation. You know, and that group performed through the platform, which has been generated by P-Web Solutions. And I can tell you there was many's a late night with Peter on the phone, on the Zoom meetings, Skype meetings, delivering on that platform. And, you know, there was over 100 units of horses come onto that platform last year. And I'm delighted with it. I think it's the way forward. And what were the tangible things? There was 30% of the foals sold abroad last year internationally.
And actually, just on that, something that we discussed earlier, as well as what it was very clear, because you could hear the ring of the bell when there was an online bid. What was very clear was, in addition to all the international sales that you achieved in 2020, there was also a massive amount of bidding that maybe they were the underbidder, but they significantly helped those lots and those sales along and into the higher prices from the support from the online bidders.
Absolutely. It really worked well. And the glory of it is, Michael, is that, we have, I think, over 1,000 people registered on the system from all the registrations that came in from the young horse auction and the foal sale. And that data, that contact list, they're not all buyers, of course, but that contact list is the property of the breeders and the producers of Ireland, because this is a full sale platform for the breeders and the producers of Ireland. There's no getting away from it. That is significant. And we're going to move on and look into the beef industry in one sense. And the focus of tonight is we've taken control of our market, the grassroots breeder. Isn't it amazing? And I just seen Michael Fitzmaurice. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but the comparison to the beef industry, where I think the term Michael Fitzmaurice used this evening was the beef and the Wainland man. He's a price taker. He has to accept the price that he gets for his kilo of meat. And this is where we're going to try and highlight that actually Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, the producers of Ireland, have taken control of their market.
Yeah, and what was huge, even the difference in terms of sales prices achieved and overall revenue from 2019 to 2020 was a massive jump, because again, there was an improvements made in all the different areas in terms of the selection, in terms of the caliber of pedigrees. Obviously, you probably would have had a higher standard of foal came out to you, because each year the group is proving themselves more and more. But that all really just came to fruition then last year. Better foals, better pedigrees. The standard that was put in by people had been raised. And in a year that it should have gone pear-shaped, COVID-wise, people restricted, you had your best year yet by a significant margin.
And I don't care, Michael. We performed, and the lads performed, and it was, as I said, it was a full. I wasn't there myself, but I could get a concept, and people have said to me it was a great day, down at Glenamaddy, and that was a risk. And I have to say thanks to Mullingar for getting us up and running. We had to make some decisions last year to go it on our own, but the full hats off to Mullingar. They kept. They got us on the road as well, And we learned quick.
What's also relevant, I think, just for those who are listening that might know you personally, it's not that Patrick didn't turn up to the event. It's that Patrick is living in Norway, so he's tuning in from Norway tonight. So because of the COVID restrictions, he wasn't able to travel then to their own sale, which was unfortunate. And moving on to 2021, do you want to go through some of the events and initiatives that the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group have planned for the industry?
Yeah, I suppose it's just hot off the printer here now. So we have planned, and it'll come up online afterwards as well. I'm not so technical here to post this to the screen. But we do have a pre-selected 3- and 4-year-old horses. Personally, I think we can take in some more older horses as well. We just have to see how that goes and the demand and what's there in the market. So we've got the Irish Horse Centre online auction. It'll all be COVID dependent whether we're online fully or will it be a physical / online sale. But the way the platform is set up, we can adapt to the market and demands of the COVID and climate. So it's that option is the 9th to the 11th of July. Of course, if we're physical or half online, we'll be setting a date on that one. But the 3 selection dates for that: 6th of June, Upper Mace, Equestrian Centre, and that incorporates Pat Kilroy 3-year-old loose jumping competition for the Pat Kilroy Memorial Trophy. Excuse me, now I'm looking to the side of the screen. And that's €1,000 in prize money, and that's based in the west of Ireland at Upper Mace Equestrian Centre. 12th of June, the other selection day at Glenamaddy Equestrian Centre, and the 30th of June, Galway Equestrian Centre. So all in the west for that young horse auction this year.
Yeah, and just to mention, actually, for those that are tuned in, if you want to be kept up to date with the goings on of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, I'd recommend that you give them a follow on Facebook, and on Instagram they go under the Irish Horse Centre, as you'll see in the background there behind Patrick. So just make sure, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, to give them a follow. It's hard, I know, to take in all the dates at once, but at least if you're following both of those pages, at least you'll see the information as it becomes publicly available.
Yeah, and we might just, for the viewers, people might be a little bit confused as to why we're Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, and now we're also we might just talk a little bit about that, how that's happened, the Irish Horse Centre .auction, that platform. Why have we decided to do that? And it's a serious one, actually. But just to the Irish Horse Centre, and the selection days, I think, if I'm right, it's in one, there's one selection day or maybe 2 selection days, but there's one, we cater for all the breeders. I see someone has made a comment there. We're catering.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Good. Any prompts are noted. We're catering for breeders on the whole.
Yeah. And that has been brilliant as well. While you started out as a group of breeders from the West to try and create a sale for breeders from the West and improve our situation here, it has been brilliant to see it incorporated the whole of Ireland. You really have breeders from north and south throughout the country, and everybody has an opportunity to enjoy a slice of that success as well, which is great.
Absolutely. And you know, we've always in-house in the strategy, Michael, as well. And what I might actually say, we have achieved pretty much all of it now. You know, our long-term goals, short-term goals up to now, probably exceeded some of our expectations. I'll let John think about that. But we dream big. And I suppose one other important thing, we're not, as I said, we encompass all the breeders and producers of Ireland. That's our thinking, that's our psyche. But also, you know, we want to collaborate, you know, and that means Horseboard Ireland, Teagasc, and now maybe we're looking towards collaboration with the Department of Agriculture as well. We think the word collaboration is something that's in all the strategy documents. I do actually think that we have over 20 of the recommendations from Reaching New Heights through MRBG, Irish Horse Centre initiatives, through our education. We've achieved, or we've attempted to achieve, about 20 of the recommendations from that document. So we're very keen on those documents, and I really do think we're implementers. We want to see, that was a frustration that we didn't see enough action on a lot of the things in the document. It's very a great wish list, but come on, let's get the job done at the same time too.
Yeah, and I think what's with a lot of the things that we're going to discuss tonight, they're all interlinked. Like, none of these are actually freestanding issues. While we might discuss them in isolation, they're all interlinked from KT and that whole area of education and bringing breeders together through the Mayo Roscommon Breeders, through TAMS. It's relevant because it's going to improve the facilities to allow people to raise their horses in a more appropriate or desired manner, which will feed in. Now they're able to market them and showcase them within a system that they have more control over. And I think everything we're going to discuss tonight is intertwined. I had meant to mention once my sound came back on, and just to apologize for that, but the Willie Mullins video I can circulate it afterwards to anyone that's interested. It was a video that At the Races did with Willie Mullins, and they were asking him why. The interviewer was talking about, he remembers as a child the Irish going to Cheltenham and often not coming home with a winner. Why does he think that the Irish are dominating so much? And you would think he would say, you know, bloodlines, it's our people, it's the natural horsemanship, it's the limestone land, the usual things that we're hearing. And he put it down to investment in infrastructure and racing in the thoroughbred sector. And that was it. That's all he had to say on the matter. So that Patrick had hit on that video and circulated with the rest of us. And for me, it's unfortunate that I couldn't play it, but for me, it really captured the essence of what we are here to discuss and highlight and try and gain support for. But just before we finish up on the Mayo Roscommon events, would you just touch on the wholesale plans for this year? Or did I miss? Sorry.
I don't think there's, maybe John can elaborate on it more. The plans, I said, yeah, I suppose it starts off the 17th of July in Shore Farm. We're the 24th of July. We'll post all of this. We're at Shore Farm, Mayo, Glenamaddy Equestrian Centre in July, Hughes Horse Stud, Kilkenny. 1st of August, Kennedy Equestrian Centre in Limerick with Liam and Kieran. And then the 7th of August, Ecclesville Equestrian Centre, Oma.
Is that six selection dates?
1, 2, 3, 5 selections.
Okay, 5.
So, no civil service mileage per kilometre with us now, Michael. But we're going to go and do it. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. Well, that's what's great, and it's back to the point that Mark made. It's not just open to all breeders. It's not just a matter of, oh, we're open to everyone, but you have to come to the West. You're fairly spreading it wide to make it as convenient as possible for people nationwide. Yeah. Just to add something that we had been discussing over the past few days, an addition, we'll hopefully be able to announce some details through the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group shortly, but a significant player or company in the equine industry is looking to come on board this year for the qualifiers, for the selection days, and for the Mayo Roscommon sale. So myself and Patrick had been discussing about maybe if there was a prize introduced for the best turned out at the selection days, it would hopefully encourage everyone to just up the standard ever so slightly, raise the overall standard. It'll mean there's better photos, better videos at the selection days, and then also a raised standard at the final, at the sale itself, which will hopefully raise the interest and the prices. So it hopefully will be a nice addition that there'll be prizes at each selection day for the best turned out and a grand prize at the sale as well. So just to encourage that.
Maybe Patrick should clarify whether that's horse or handler.
Well, maybe there'll be one for both, John. But look, it's primarily best turned out for the horse, the mare and foal. So what we might just do then is maybe move on a little bit. We've probably touched on knowledge transfer. It's something that we strongly feel should be included in the next Common Agricultural Policy plans and budget, and we're going to do all that we can to ensure that it is, because myself and Patrick as facilitators of that have seen a massive impact in, I suppose, in the current realities of a lot of the breeders that we work with. Of course, there were people turned up and went through the motions and they got out what they put into it. But there were other breeders then that came into it really, really hungry for information, for knowledge, for contacts, for a group of like-minded people, like Patrick mentioned, to be able to work towards a common goal. And I know there's some people that are tuned in this evening and thinking of their own individual breeding programs, and the changes that they've made in those few years is huge. And that's why I strongly feel that it's something that we need to implement again. We were talking during the week of, we were we were going back through over the KT program and our experience. A few of us were chatting, and back to tangible results from it. The Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group sales, the Irish Horse Centre platform, are a very tangible result of the KT program. And in my own situation, the likes of the Sport Horse and Thoroughbred Stallion show that was run in 2019, you could say it was largely attributed to a group, 4 of us being brought together through the knowledge transfer program. And I know the lads are tuned in with Mark Bulger, John Kerr, and Nigel Poynton. And there was a large, there was a broader team throughout the KT program that supported us on that day. And subsequently, we lost John, I think. Subsequently, the loose jumping event that we ran as well was another thing. And I suppose in my own individual situation, the likes of my podcast that some of you are familiar with, Big Talk for Breeders, really was born, and the you can call it the test subjects or the guinea pigs was actually my own knowledge transfer groups. There's been lots of different positives that all of us here have experienced, so that we're really anxious to get that re-established. It was a 3-year program that ended in July 2019, and we'd really like to see it back again. So, Patrick, that might be a nice opportunity to bring in John as one of your fellow colleagues, as an organizer of the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, but in this instance, I guess also a participant, a knowledge transfer program participant. And you might just talk about it from your own perspective, and then we'll introduce John to talk about the changes in his own program and the effects as a result of coming together with your own breeders group.
Yeah.
I suppose from my point of view, I would have thought that breeders would be very isolated, and maybe the advice they were getting it from a vested interest, myself included, and it wasn't always the best advice. And I was thinking about this last night, and something else I thought of actually is through the knowledge transfer groups and the breeders group, people came to you and looked and assessed your foals, and you went to other people. That would never have happened before. Breeders would never see another breeder in their yard, and you have to be critical, and it helps you to be critical. And when you sit around a table and you eventually find that you're on the same level as everybody else, it opens up a conversation. And before this, you looked up to breeders and they were successful, and it's only through the likes of knowledge transfer you find out that they have the same problems, number one, as all other breeders, but they started from the same point you started from. And the little nuggets that maybe they found the hard way, you could pick up off them a lot simpler. So to me it was a big eye-opener that everybody is on a level playing field and everybody has the same problems, and that there is advice there, and that nobody is on a better footing than anybody else. So I found it very useful in that regard, and I have to say that following on from that, the sale would have completely changed my breeding program and my breeding goals.
Mm-hmm.
So
I guess just on that and the changes in your own breeding program, John, your own enterprise at home was predominantly beef with a side interest in equine. Yes. And now could you talk through, I suppose, the changes and what those changes have meant for your own enterprise?
Well, first off, it was, as you said, it was predominantly beef, and there was very, very, very tight margins, and those were tight margins on paper, but actually in the field, those tight margins became possibly even negative. So eventually, I just stopped it and just didn't buy in the next round of cattle, we'd say, for finishing.
Mm-hmm. And
bit by bit, the land was there, and the numbers of horses that was increasing, and through the knowledge transfer, and it gives you confidence to go out and buy a better mare, because you have people there to help you out in all aspects of it. So I suppose one mare follows another, and there's a few there now, but I'm confident we have an outlet for them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I suppose it's probably been a very quick progression for you as well, from when you were rescued by Patrick all those years ago. But I think what's amazing, if you actually think back over a very short window of time between the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group KT program having your own sales outlet, last year alone was a fantastic year for your own breeding program in terms of your sales, both the Mayo Roscommon and the likes of the Monarch sale.
But to be fair, some of those foals that were sold in the Mayo Roscommon, it says in our sale in Glenamady, those mares were bought in after the knowledge transfer, and because of it, and even the breeding choices, they're not made alone. They're made in group discussion almost. And I wouldn't have. I think I'd be paddling away in my own canoe upstream at this moment in time if I didn't have joined a discussion group.
Yeah. And
until that point, and the equine knowledge transfer, there was no equine discussion groups. Other farming sectors have them. So it was the first time, and it culminated in success last year. And there was something else there. There was a question there where somebody said, to make sure that everybody knows that it's open to everybody. Yeah. And our philosophy within the group would be that if we go to the four corners of the country and pick the best foals we can get, that increases the profile of the sale, it increases the quality of the sale, and it would increase the price of my foal if he gets into the sale. So that's the reason that we look outside the group. It's not just an inward looking group, and I suppose that's why maybe it has been successful.
I think so, because some of the frustrations.
It's a better audience when you have a better catalogue of foals.
Yeah, but I know, but also when you have an open and transparent group of people, and that's sometimes the frustrations of breeders in the industry is sometimes there's probably a feeling of helplessness, and if you go and seek help, you'll be taken advantage of. And I think that's probably where you've changed that mindset for a lot of breeders. What I might do, Patrick, then it's probably a good opportunity back to significant impacts that have been made through the knowledge transfer program. That's really where you brought Dermot Brennan into the fold. So will you just talk us through how that came about and what were the results of that introduction?
Yeah, so I just might mention, Michael, a little bit about the Breeders Alliance lobby group as well, that was set up. Apart from the sale of our product and the marketing and the production of our product, we did see other contentious issues in the industry as well. Now, until now, it got a bit of a backseat because we had to get that platform up and running. And remember, we do all of this on our voluntary time. But we also had this Breeders Alliance lobby group, and this was other issues in the other challenges we've seen in the industry as well. And we just kind of put it to one side up until now because we were busy with the sale and we needed a bit of a breather there before Christmas. But I suppose some of the things from the Breeders Alliance lobby group, it may evolve into something else now. I'll mention it after a while with Horse Sport Ireland. I'm awaiting some feedback on it. I hope I get it soon. Increased TAMS. We wanted to kind of increase the awareness of TAMS, so increase the funding for breeders, kind of improve sales and marketing funding, and lobby government bodies to ensure future allocation of funds is directed towards these needs. Education and training support, the KT, continuation of it. And also at the time, we're all aware of the Economic Steering Committee within Horse Sport Ireland. I'm connected with a lot of them, Barry and Mike Fitz, Michael Slattery in Clare, are my main contacts there. And, they were always trying to connect with us down to the grassroots. Can you touch base with your local PDs to get the word up the ladder towards funding? So that's the collaboration that's going on within it. So Noel definitely wanted me to mention that as well. And now some of these other challenges in the industry, the group are taking a proactive approach towards some of these things now as well. But I suppose back to your question, Michael, KT, Dermot, Brennan. Dermot, I'm going to get you in talking now in a second. But again, Dermot, I think just met Dermot. He's in the West as well. And Dermot is an ag advisor. He knows what a horse is, but that's about it. And he's an agri consultant. And in the KT program, there was some compulsory things where we had to look at the topic of deposit to farm and agriculture and under cap. We had to look at I think it was succession.
Succession or progression, yeah.
Progression. I prefer progression, to be honest. I don't want to look at the bill. So progression was the topic. What can we do to improve? And I just brought Dermot in to all of my groups, and we had a little bit of a road show. Cavan Monaghan, that was eventful, and then obviously down to the west and into Galway. So I suppose Dermot, and this is where we started to realise about all the other schemes. So apart from KT, we were becoming aware of the department and what was involved, and then suddenly this word CAP came up. And then we started to learn about some of, maybe, I've got 20 acres of land. I can actually be increasing cash flow through other farm schemes. Dermot will enlighten you on that as well. But before I hand over to Dermot, the main thing from Dermot's sessions was there was a lady in the session. I won't mention her name, but she had done her equine science degree. This may lead on to other topics now where we're looking at careers in the industry. An equine green cert, something I'm very looking forward to. But anyway, back to the point. The lady in question had been away in England. She'd done her equine science. She'd moved into another area of work, and now she'd come back to Ireland, and she had been she got set up on the home place at home, and she'd taken over the farm, and she had a keen interest in the horses. She had no awareness of the schemes that was available to her, and she did qualify as a young trained farmer. And I'm actually quite keen that there's an equine young trained farmer of the future as well. But long story short, Dermot enlightened her. I helped her afterwards. And, she had, I think, in between 10 and 12,000 euros now extra into her annual budget on the farm, because
that she wasn't aware that she was entitled to.
Wasn't aware of it. I tell you, I am a popular man, and Dermot as well. So it was a real feel-good story from the event, Michael, and there's so many other ones as well. Particularly with the gathering of older men and women out in the countryside, come in and have that network was, and I talk to them now and they miss it. The connection they had with like-minded people. So that was a feel-good story, and I was delighted. It really made the traveling in and out from Ireland and Norway just impossible. Yeah, real feel-good story. I was just delighted, and I was happy that Dermot came in and everything. So yeah, thanks to Dermot there for enlightening us all.
Yeah, and that's one thing that, sometimes with a lot of the maybe knowledge transfer discussion groups, it's about increasing profitability and that kind of thing. But the social element and human element was absolutely massive. And for some people, especially if people weren't pub goers or maybe, overly social outside of the horse world, this gave them 5 or 6 events, to look forward to with a group of people that they bonded with over time and got to know over the 3 years of the program. And now it's amazing to see those breeders, those friendships that have been formed, and that they have go-to people to bounce different ideas off. But bringing in Dermot now, some of the listeners, if they have another agricultural enterprise, might be very clued into what they're aware of. But like the lady that Patrick mentioned there, sometimes if you're just equine specific, you just might not be aware of what's available to you. So just to bring it back to basics, first of all, Dermot, would you mind coming in, giving us a talk through on some of the standard schemes that are available? What is TAMS? What is REPS? And maybe if you could talk through some of the changes that REPS is experiencing as well, just to bring everyone up to a base level of understanding of what those schemes are, please.
Yeah, no problem at all. So basically, what was the base.
Could I just stop you there for a second, Dermot?
Direct payment.
Well, sorry, there's just will Patrick and John, will you confirm? Are you hearing a delay on?
Yes.
Will you just switch off your camera for a second, Dermot, and it should play more clearly?
Yeah.
No offense meant, Dermot.
None taken.
Okay, that's much clearer now. Yeah. So fire ahead there, Dermot. Thank you.
That's easy. Yes. So what Patrick would have been talking about there was the direct payment section. So any person with an actual equine herd number, a flock number, anything is entitled to that. So under that, you're here talking about entitlements, the National Reserve, your young farm, and also your ANC payment. So every person that has equine stock or any type of stock on the herd will qualify for an ANC payment once you meet your minimum stock rate. Okay, then in terms of entitlements, they come by if you're a new entrant into farming, you can qualify under the National Reserve Scheme. To qualify under the National Reserve Scheme, you have to have completed a green cert or a level 6 equivalent. So there's a list. The Department of Agriculture has actually got a list of all the courses and all the courses that will qualify you under that. And even the UK, like Patrick was saying there, the UK and different countries have different certifications, but it is possible to get them transferred and recognised in Ireland. Like, you just have to go to Tavish through that body. So once you qualify under the National Reserve, you receive an entitlement of your own, and that entitlement then will actually stay with the farmer for his or her lifetime, unless they decide to sell them or if they don't use them themselves. If the farmer comes so for the National Reserve, you can be any age actually to qualify under that. So I've seen retired school teachers complete the green cert and actually qualify for the National Reserve. So there's no issue with that. The next section you hear people talking about is the Young Farmer Scheme. So the Young Farmer Scheme is a scheme that runs for first 5 years. To qualify for that, you have to be under the age of 4, and you'll receive 68.50 of a top up on the first 15 entitlements for the first 5 years farmer. Okay, so if you don't say you've been farming for 7, you've had your equine number for 7 years, so you're outside of the national reserve category, you're faced with 2 options there. You can either buy in entitlements or you can rent entitlements. So rent entitlement is generally works out at 50 to 55% of the value. So an easy way to describe that is, if I rent an entitlement worth a total of €100, I'll pay Michael €55 now, and I'll get say the €100 from the department in the back end time when payments come out. So I'll make €45 on that transaction. And then the third thing then is your ANC payment. So that is just a payment the Department of Agriculture give for you maintaining grazing stock on your land. So a minimum period of 7 months and a minimum stock rate of 0.15 units per month for 12 months. But it just how much land you have and how much stock you would have. So I suppose leading on to the rental side, have you had schemes previously like loss?
Your line isn't just 100% at the moment, Dermot.
Right, then it mightn't just be perfect down there. I can try and move it a small bit.
Just if you could, because I'm sure there are probably people just hanging on there waiting for that key bit of information, and it's cutting. Whatever about listening to myself and Patrick and John talking about our experience at KT when it comes down to money and grants and what people are eligible for.
Really quick.
You don't want to miss
a intentional.
word.
Maybe it's intentional.
This is the money man.
And actually, just while John is, while Dermot is looking for a better Wi-Fi spot in the house, just to mention, he is probably a man that's unlikely to plug himself, but he is available. He works for himself, and he is available as an agricultural consultant. Should anyone wish to avail of his services now, while he's gone looking for Wi-Fi. And if anybody works for a Wi-Fi company, you can probably do some sort of a barter with them.
Yeah. For sure.
Just actually while Dermot is getting better Wi-Fi, and just apologies for the delay, just Danny Murphy had asked if we could cover gaining a green cert equivalency in lieu of BHS or other equine qualifications. And a while back, so I studied equine business in Maynooth, and Patrick had passed on a contact in Chagas. Was it Carmel Lynch? Is that the surname?
I think it was. We can post it again.
Exactly.
I think it was Carmel Lynch. Yeah.
Exactly. So what you can do is you can submit your qualifications, and she will let you know if that qualifies for any equivalency under the green cert. In my own situation, equine business, because it was a business degree rather than ag based, it didn't qualify me. So I have recently started doing the green cert. So Danny, I can, if you remind me after this, I can. Carmel Finley. I had the wrong name. Thank you, Valerie. Carmel Finley in Chagas. So Danny, if you give me a message after this, and if anyone else, we can either post it, or if Danny, if you want to message me, I can give that to you. So we'll just wait for Dermot to come back to us. Was there anything else that we needed to touch on just while?
Well, do we want to just get into this a little bit, considering that, we can see now that there's a lack of awareness in the horse business, horse industry of the different farm schemes, and particularly if we boil down to the education. And John made a valid point last night that it was like, I'm touching 40. John is a little bit over it. We won't get into that. But when we were pulling out of school, it was, the lads went off or the girls went off and they did their green cert. And as you said, Michael, it wasn't a thought for me or you to go off and do such a green cert that it qualified you as a trained young farmer now. And I think this is just an area in the industry that might help our breeders, our young breeders, our producers, and I noticed Horseboard Ireland, I know we had a meeting with Horseboard Ireland and Alison before Christmas, and there is in-house, I'm told, I'm keen to find out more information about it, there's a national education or equine education pathway plan for the industry. And at that meeting, I did highlight the fact of all of these schemes and were they connecting with the Department of Agriculture, and particularly the time is upon us with this new CAP program, and hopefully Dermot can come in and discuss CAP as well and what we need to do in terms of our action plan after this meeting. But we need to have our young breeders, young producers accredited that they are an equivalent, and I use the word equivalent, that's a word that will pop up for anyone out there that has qualifications and is looking to get qualified as a young trained farmer. We need to really address this issue, this challenge, that our young breeders, our young producers of the future are young trained equine farmers, and we need to act. And I think we need to get it into our CAP submission, which we'll discuss in a second, to ensure that our breeders, producers of the future are able to access all these farm schemes, and most importantly, they're up to date and able to fight their corner on these issues. And again, that's the highlight of tonight, to create that awareness.
And will we just try, are you back with us, Dermot?
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
We can. So you might just continue on there. If I think it's much clearer at the moment. So
yeah, I'm just trying to think. Where I was talking about the green cert equivalent, wasn't it?
yeah, green cert equivalent. And actually, I've just, if anyone is looking in the Q&A session there, Valerie had kindly given us Carmel's full name in Teagasc that does the green cert equivalents, and I have just replied to her. So if you click into the answer section in the Q&A, I've put in Carmel Finley's email address as well, so that if people do want to check out those equivalents, they can submit their qualifications to Carmel, and she can clarify if you're eligible or not.
It's only a matter then of once Teagasc would sign off on that, or your equivalent, that's you qualified then, or you're receiving the same recognition.
Yeah,
that's correct.
That's it.
Yeah. And I just, I hope within this new program for the breeders and the producers that Horseport Ireland are developing in-house, that this connection is made. And I talked to Kieran Kennedy yesterday. I talked to many breeders, producers on a daily basis, weekly basis, and finding young producers or producers of good sport horses with sufficient and adequate facilities is a thing that we've all heard about it, that our producers are leaving the country. But maybe this could be a little bit of an incentive down the road that actually, oh, well, if I engage myself in this program, whatever it is, that actually, there's a small farm at home, or I buy a place when I settle down 20s, 30s, and actually I have my equine green cert equivalent, and I can maybe get my 60% grant for my round pen, my nice surface to produce and train the horses for the platforms of the future, which hopefully Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group, Irish Horse Centre will continue to develop and roll out. So that's a real hot one for me. I really want to get that nailed. I hope people agree I'm on the right track with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And actually, just Dermot, there was a question came in from Linda Young here. And Linda is asking, I understood you required a herd number to be eligible for ANC or BPS schemes. Did I hear Dermot say that you could receive these grants with just an equine registration number? But actually, just on that, Linda, and Dermot, I think it will correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like he's connecting to audio at the moment. So with a herd number, Linda, with the number stays the same regardless of what additional enterprises you have. So if you have, say, beef, sheep, dairy, but you also have horses, my understanding is that you just activate the equine element, but that your number stays the same with the Department of Agriculture. But Dermot will clarify if I'm right or wrong, if you're back there, Dermot.
Yeah, that's.
I suppose the question is.
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can do.
Is it just that you have an equine number and no herd number? Then are you eligible for an ANC payment? I would think yes, but Dermot would probably know better. He's gone.
So your herd number, yeah, the equine number is your equivalent of a herd number. It's a flock number for anyone. It's the same equivalent. It's still entitled dairy payment or the ANC payment. All it means is you'd have to, I know for the horses, you'd have to send in a passport. So say you'd be taken from people who would be carrying stock all year round. It'd be taken from the
last day in July, you can post in your cert then. Then you've completed 7 full months of having that stock in your herd. And once the department signs off on the books, I know the biggest issue for people with horses is that that's a busy time for showing, and it's not a great time to be sending off passports and waiting for the department to actually come back with them as the issue. But no, there's no issue with people echoing if that's any good to them.
It is for the words that we're hearing, Dermot, because it's still cutting in and out, so it's hard to get the full sentences. But yeah, I think the answer to Linda. So the equine number, be it a herd number or equine specific, it's still a Department of Ag, say, reference number for your own premises there. Yeah,
it's interesting to know that John had mentioned that there's almost 27,000 registered equine premises numbers in the country.
Yeah.
I would also think that of those 27,000, there would be a good proportion that would have no other number, just an equine number. So if they have land attached to that, they would be eligible for an A&C payment. Now, there are certain hoops you have to jump through with your breeding mares of what they have and haven't done in the last 2 years within your herd. But, you know, there is, if you have the numbers, you will get an A&C payment per hectare on an equine number.
Yeah.
What we just when we're struggling with the connectivity on Dermot's end, Patrick, would you mind moving on to, I suppose, the equine specific conversation around TAMS, and I suppose what the starting point was, what has been achieved to date since you started to try and get a greater equine inclusion on the TAMS front, because I suppose we've seen the transformative effect that it's had on other sectors, and we're looking at it longingly. And I guess in past, people will be familiar with it probably from past years and schemes. A lot of people would have put in arenas and stables. Our own arena at home was in under one of the former TAMS schemes as well. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind just talking kind of where we're at and why we are where we are. Why are we even having this conversation now? Why are we on tonight? Why isn't it a thing that why isn't equine included? And then the progress that's been made since you've started banging this drum.
Well, Michael, we missed the boat, to be honest. But that's why we're here tonight, to address the thing.
Now, as a sector, rather than you
as a sector, not me specifically, but I'm trying to get something done about it now, you know. And collectively, there's a great group. There's not just me. There's a great group of lads now in the WhatsApp group on this equine webinar / equine farming. So it's not just me. There's a lot of people behind it now, 6 or 7 ladies and girls and boys, and getting on with it. But the main thing is, you know, as I said, since Christmas now, once the sale was over, and I was looking more at the Breeders Alliance lobby group, and again with TAMS, I think the TAMS Pillar 2 funding was sanctioned in 2016, if I'm not aware, if I'm correct. So at that time, no submission was sent in from the industry, from our industry leaders. And it's not just our leaders or people within the education bodies or whatever. We as an industry didn't apply or send a submission to get our equine premises and equipment and facilities switched on within TAMS. We didn't get up off our arse and get it done. So it's not in TAMS. I know as an agent, I'm an agent in the Department of Agriculture. I can get a login to it, you know, we can't apply for it because it hasn't been switched on. What does this switched on thing mean, and how are we going to do it? I suppose that's the focus of a document then just a 3-page document. I worked on it since Christmas. I've done a bit of research on it. I've made contact with Oliver Malloy in the TAMS department, and he's been very helpful. Again, major decision making to get this switched on for the industry is out of his hands. There's tranche 22 will kick off in April, and it's speculated that it will run again, but it's not likely that we'll be in it. I don't know if we're going to get it switched on. So that's just a bit of a thing. I'm meeting some block walls on it, but again, I've done this document, 3-page document, and I have circulated it to Horseboard Ireland. We did have a meeting in October time with Joe Reynolds. Alison was there, Avalon Everett was there as well, and we did discuss, we were looking for an update on a few other little, other industry initiatives, and they have done a brilliant job, don't get me wrong, but we to progress this equine farming front, the document was just to highlight some of the current updates as to where we're at, and one of those things is to, Dermot might be able to come in on it. I don't know if he's in or not.
We just lost him there for a second.
Yeah,
So
I suppose McConnell, I think that's the Minister for Agriculture. I think that's the correct pronunciation of his
no,
name.
it is. Yeah, McConnell.
Yeah, McConnell. Yeah. There is a new rural environmental protection scheme opening up later in the year, and I did notice that there would be a KT element to that as well. They are looking for submissions on it, and this is to be bolted into CAP and as another farm scheme in the future CAP 2023. So I think as an industry, it's important that we get that filled out and get our thoughts as an equine farming industry, breeding and production, forward to the Department of Agriculture. There is a section on the website from previous discussions, which I crazily attended at the time. I don't know why, I was home and just pricked my ears a little bit as to, I might go down there. It was a CAP reform or CAP submission night, and it was in Port Leash, and there was no representation from the horse industry there at all. I was the only one, and naively I didn't have any questions that night. It was just go there to kind of be curious. Curiosity, yeah. And I suppose coming away from it, running the KT program, this equine farming has really rung home with me, and why we're not further and more deeply included in the program,
Yeah, and that's one of the kind of alarming things. For some reason, when these decisions are being made, there's an alarming absence of equine representation. And one thing to mention actually is, in the past few weeks, there's been some really helpful conversations. I feel there's a lot of progress being made on this front, and there are some people that are tuned in tonight that have been very generous with their time and helpful with their information. And speaking, I think and hope she won't mind me mentioning her by name, but Ailish Byrne is the agri manager in Ulster Bank and would be involved in different strategy groups in terms of putting together these documents for CAP and that sort of thing. But one comment that she made was there was a 2030 strategy document made for the agri sector, and there wasn't a single representative from the entire equine sector. And there are lots of smaller sectors who don't make the same or near the same significant contribution that the equine sector make to the economy that are represented there. And for some reason, there's no one to be seen from a leadership point of view in the horse industry. So it's at these key moments when our country is making strategy documents and projections for the next 5-10 years. Unfortunately, the powers that be are nowhere to be seen, and it has a detrimental effect on all of us that are trying to make a living from this sector. But just one thing as well, and to thank Ailish for her support on this, she has actually sent a request into Sean Bell, who I believe is the chief economist in the Department of Agriculture, to ask him to clarify why equine has not been included in the current TAMS scheme. And while we're unlikely to get an inclusion until the next rollout of the 2023 cap budget is probably our earliest opportunity for a significant inclusion, if everything goes to plan on that front.
But I suppose, Michael, there's many little angles to it, and tonight is just to get the creative thinking going on
and the conversation.
The conversation, exactly. And I just had to get all the stuff out of my head, and John has been a great man to keep me motivated on all of these things. And we see all this, you take it, give you an example, like a 25-year-old trained young farmer that will inherit the land at home, you know what I mean? He can roll into, and Dermot will back me up on this as well if he's with me, you know what I mean? He can roll in there, join into a partnership. And Dermot, just what sort of funding is available there? If and I'm giving an equivalent here, a young producer in the horse industry, he's not going to qualify for the same level of things if he's a trained, young, qualified beef producer.
No, so if you're going in as under TAMS, if you go in as a registered farm partnership, and you've a young farmer there that's qualifying, ticking all the boxes, and you have say the father or mother or whatever it may be, you're looking at a funding of about 160,000 there. Like that's a lot of money. Like if you could lobby, like you're talking about, or get on with the department and get access to, say, arenas or stations for mares or anything like that, like 160,000 doing no flood around the yard, like no matter what enterprise you're in. But the biggest issue is, like, currently when you look at TAMS, all that's available to, say, horse breeders is stocks and a bit of yard lighting, and that's it. So like really, it is a lobby group is really what's necessary to push it that extra step, like.
Yeah. And I suppose back to viable.
Just to be clear on something like that yard lighting, it's just generic lighting. It's not lighting up your arena. There is, there's a difference.
Yeah, and we want to look, and I suppose if we're thinking and we're creating an action plan after this, we need to look at the health and safety side of things, handling our young horses, handling our mares. That will have to be, Dermot, you've said that's a crucial area that we need to focus on. Like I mentioned
before, Patrick, like that's when you have your accidents. Like that's why when you look at what the department is doing for, say, dairy farming or for beef lads, that's the key areas to target. These cows, calving, angry cows, where the farmer can escape from the cow. These little gates, like, people might think they're not much, but when there's a funding on them, lads jump for them. It's really the HSA is people you would need on your side as well, Patrick. That they're the ones with the figures of the accidents that do happen, and how much you do when they give you a.
We're losing you, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a pity.
Well, I don't know if Dermot can still hear us, but just
when you're out training, they'll tell you. Yeah, so really what you need to know is how much.
We're losing a lot of you, Dermot. Just what I will do, just to mention when you mentioned the HSA, and that is a massive one, because when you look across agriculture, I guess across all the enterprises within agriculture, I think there's a higher rate of fatalities in agriculture than people that die or get significantly injured at work, life-changing injuries. There is as many people in agriculture, I believe, as all the other sectors put together. It's significantly higher than all the other sectors. So I guess that's why there's been that significant investment through a safety point of view, or improving the safety of the enterprises. And tonight, yeah, it's an awareness conversation, but also, since we have been having the conversations amongst ourselves, that's led to phone calls throughout the industry that have then led to other very useful conversations as well. So people have been very helpful with their contacts and with their support. And really tonight, what I would encourage people to do is, there'll be many people listening that have the ear of, maybe it's a politician, maybe it's a person of influence in the equine sector, maybe it's a contact of prominence within the Department of Agriculture. So it's to try and use all those links and contacts that we have in a positive manner. It sounds like Dermot's still driving down the road, so I'm expecting him to pull up outside our house now any minute.
Thanks, some Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That looked great. Is that any better there now, Michael?
It is, yeah. But now I can't invite you in for tea.
Is there just the one connection in Sligo? There is.
Just open the window. It's okay.
So, just Dermot, there's some questions that have come in specific to yourself, and just if you have a minute, you might. There's one shorter one that we might answer live, and then maybe you might even type a response to some of the other ones while we're covering different areas. So David Williams has asked, do you have to use broodmares for the payments, or does any horse qualify once it's in your name?
So no, not any horse will qualify. I was just trying to look up, when I got cut off that time, I was trying to look up, there's a spec there online. What I'll do is I'll just copy that and I'll post it into the chat there, and you'll see exactly what I mean there, or what they specify for the horses. Like, I just pulled up inside the road now. I should be able to get it. So.
Perfect. And there's another anonymous poster has said they currently have a small holding, approximately 10 acres, and considering building some sheds and mares for young stock before next winter. Is there anything available? And if not, which I expect, should I delay my decision pending hopeful developments? And also, are such stipulations placed on grants for farm buildings that I could build it myself with less bells and whistles for a cheaper net amount? Now, from previous conversations, anything equine specific beyond the stocks and, say, the lighting, which is more general for all enterprises, really it's just a stocks. And I think there's even a limit on the value that those stocks can be, and have to meet there's a spec on that. But in terms of general farm buildings that are included under TAMS, it sounds like from previous conversations with Dermot, you can kind of build what you want, but in terms of materials, that's what's they're quite specific on. Would that be right, if you can hear me?
There's a general spec there that, that's why people always say that a grant shed is a lot dearer than if you just go and do the shed yourself. But the flip side of that is your grant shed is a fair sturdier shed. Like, it's slightly high on spec, but you have a great quality shed there that's not going to go anywhere. Like, it'll stand the test of time. Like, in terms of, say, if someone wanted to do something with a shed, you have the option of doing that. Say, you could build a calf house, anything you want, but the issue with that is that if a department official calls to your yard to inspect that shed, you can't alter the shed within the first 5 years of constructing it. Mm-hmm. So it has to be, so if you build it for sheep or for cows, you have to leave that stuff in it for the first 5 years. Now, you can put the horses into it, there's no problem, but you just can't alter the design or anything like that of the shed. And then outside, once you've hit your 5 years and go past that, then you can alter it. There's no issue.
It can become your indoor arena.
You can do what you want. You can be indoor swimming pool if you want.
So Pam Walsh, who, if people aren't aware of Pam, is another very helpful individual in the banking world as well. And we might actually touch on some of the funding options that are available to people before we finish up tonight. Pam has wondered, can you qualify for GLOS with an equine premises number? This gives you access to the traditional farm building schemes.
Yes, you could. Yeah. problem is Gloss is closed for new entrants at present. So for that person, what you'd be looking at will be the new REAP or RAP, what they're calling it. So the results-based agriculture pilot scheme, what you've been hearing about in the papers.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there'll be anything in that scheme in terms of heritage grant for renewing old granaries or that type of thing at the minute. But then in 2023, it seems that that's when the new round of environmental schemes will open, and I'd say there will be something then in terms of heritage grant for redoing old buildings and that type of thing.
And just actually, while Pam's name popping up there has reminded me of sometimes it can be very, very difficult to get the, cash flow in the horse world. You can be living, sale to sale, and there can be a long time between them. There are a few funds either available or coming available across different banking institutions that could be worth people looking up. So there is a credit guarantee scheme that I've discussed with Pam over the past week or so, which has a repayment or an interest. The interest rate is maybe 2.6, 2.7. There was the future growth loan scheme, which I think is now nearly fully subscribed across all sectors. And there is a scheme that should be coming out in the next 3 to 4 months. It's going to be the Brexit loan scheme, and it's the kind of the purpose of it is to assist people with cash flow, I guess, for a lot of businesses that have been affected by Brexit. And it's an unsecured loan up to a max of €250,000. Sometimes even if you do get approved, say in the TAMS world, it can still be hard to come up with the money, because with a lot of these schemes, you have to spend it to reclaim it. So that can sometimes be the difficulty. But just to make people aware that there are some alternative options there as well for helping your cash flow.
Yeah, and again, Michael, this is funding that's available from the EU under the Future Growth Loan Scheme. And again, you'd never see an advert in the Irish field or in the public, domain of the equine equine advertising. You'd never see something being advertised to the equine sector. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like we only hit on it because we got the Farmers Journal, and that's how we started talking about it. Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. Or was it the Farming Independent maybe?
Yeah, I think it's the Farming Independent as well. And again, for other people that might have, I follow Agriland, and I follow a few other. There's a couple of current things, apps there as well, and those things are always popping up. And I suppose I'm aware because I've been involved in the KT program, and we've been immersed in agriculture and some of the requirements that they wanted us to fulfill. So that's where my awareness has come to it.
There's a question in for Dermot here, and it's: what does Dermot suggest that everyone here does as a minimum in the current available funds, e.g. get equine number and get stocks, and where do you apply for these stocks and lighting?
So in terms of the minimum, like the minimum I'd be saying for everyone is to make sure that you're getting your ANC payment at the very minimum, and look at entitlements after that. In terms of TAMS funding for stocks, you can either do that through, there's a facility there, the Department of Agriculture has a facility, so you log on to agfood.ie and you register. So even equine numbers are able to register as sorry, I got cut there for a second. Equine herd numbers are able to register, and it's a facility where you can go in and you'll see the TAMS Agri section is there, so you can click into that and you'll be able to register through that portal. Or else you contact an advisor like myself, or you might have your own advisory. You will go to them and they can apply for you as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Dermot, just another question there, because it keeps cropping up, the ANC. Exactly how much per hectare or per acre is the ANC payment? Because it's standard across the board, isn't it?
No, it's not standard, John. So the ANC payment is broken into 3 categories, or it's 4 categories, and that's based on the area or the types of land you're in. So I have the rates here, and I'll just read them out to you. So you have category one type land, category 2, and category 3. So category 1 is your most severely impacted land. So that's like your commonage and hill farms. So for your first 12 hectares in a category 1 area, you've received €148 per hectare. Then after your 12 hectares, that drops down to €112 per hectare, up to 34 hectares, right? So if you're outside that spec and you'd be in category 2 land, so your payment then it'll drop down to €112 a hectare. Then once you go over the 11 hectares as a category 2 farmer, you go to €104. And then when you're in a category 3 area, you're seen as it's relatively good agricultural land. So you're starting there at €93 a hectare. So the more rushes and heather and mountain you're looking at, the higher the payment's going to be. And then when you get towards the rock or good land, it starts dropping down slightly.
I suppose from a West of Ireland point of view, it's probably mostly with people with equine, or it's probably category 2. And is that open-ended, how many hectares you can have, or is there a limit?
So the maximum there is 34 hectares, John.
34 again for that.
Yeah, and then if you're in a category 2 or category 3 area, it's up to 30 hectares. So it'd be just that the hill farmers will receive up to 34 hectares, but then once you go to category 2 or category 3, it's up to a maximum of 30 hectares. So generally, you'll be coming away with about over 3. If you're hitting 30 hectares in total, which is about 75 acres, you'll be looking at about 3,200 a year off it, or 3,000 a year. So you would.
That's open to anybody with an equine number that's not already getting an ANC payment.
Yeah, exactly. That's open to anyone. So once you're grazing the ground and maintaining the land over the course of the year, you're qualifying for that payment. You're doing it. You'd be crazy not to be getting paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's there to be got, like.
Yeah, like the money is there. No one, the department, they're not going to come after you to tell you this is what you can get. They're leaving it up to yourself to go and get it. Like, do you know what I mean? But the money is there, and the fund is there for people to be paid on it. Like,
yeah, and I think it would be advisable. Obviously, it's great if people want to avail of your services, Dermot, especially as you've given up your time for the benefit of all of us here this evening. But whatever agricultural advisor consultant they wish to contact, it's surely worth a phone call to make sure that they're getting all that they're available for.
Everyone has free calls now. It's not going to cost you anything. It's worth touching base with an advisor and seeing what's out there, and like, don't be afraid. If you don't like what they're saying to you, don't be afraid to challenge them, because it is in it. Like, it's just, they might feel like doing the work, but the how would you say it? The fund is there, the chance is there. So I push on it, or try. I push and do my best to get it. Like,
I suppose there's another question there. Is there a minimum size?
So minimum size, no. So the minimum, like, you'll be paid up to from 1 hectare up, like, really and truly. So 1 hectare is 4.7 acres. So it is.
One question that's of particular interest, I'd say, to yourself, Dermot, and to myself. Barry Horn has asked if there are any grants available for Wi-Fi on farms.
No, not at the minute.
And Linda Young has asked, how do we contact Dermot? How are you found?
So I can give you my number there now, and I can get Patrick to share it with you again. So my mobile is 087 313 4408, and I'll put me email and that into the chat as well.
Maybe type them both. Yeah, type them both into the chat if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
And look, a lot of what we're touching on, it's trying to, and even the purpose of tonight, it's awareness of bringing the industry together for all of our benefit, and something that is interlinked with a lot of that, and us we're trying to improve the situation for all of us, trying to improve all of our current realities and situations. but I would actually like to call on one of our attendees here. I'm just going to see if I can bring him in. Many of you will be familiar with Barry O'Connor, and Barry has been one of the key drivers in lobbying government for additional funding for the sport horse sector. And I had given him a partial last minute warning that I might do this, but I'd just like to bring in Barry to just 1 second now. He should be popping up now. Just confirm if you can hear me there, Barry.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, so Barry, if you wouldn't mind, will you just talk through what you have been working on for, well, probably the past number of years at this point, and I suppose you have a particular message for especially the breeding sector that you'd like to communicate, and I think you can put it better than I can. So if you just wouldn't mind talking us through some of that and what we can do to help ourselves and our sector.
Yeah, good evening to everybody, and it's great to be part of a discussion like this, which is most of the time when people talk about money in Ireland, it's all about the entitlement and what we should be getting. But you're actually talking about tonight what you can do with it, which is a great thing to hear, and very, very progressive. I am a breeder. I have 3 mares breeding. I'm a producer, a trainer, a level 3 coach, and an agent for horses. I make my money selling horses. That's what I do. And I've been in the business for 30 years now, since I left school. About 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago, actually, I was at a meeting with the HSI, and we were trying to get something going, and they said they didn't have any money for it. And then I started to ask questions a bit more about, I wasn't part of the HSI at all. And I realized that, we never really lobbied. And I think one of the reasons, and I can see it's been asked there by a couple of people, how do we get grants? It's the same thing that we did as an industry. We had never really asked for extra money. We just got what we got, and that was it. So I got a bit of advice, especially from the thoroughbred industry, and they said you had to get an economist report, of the Jim Power report. We raised a bit over 100,000, and independently we set up a company, and we hired a lobbyist, got an economist, and we started. And it was a slow process. And I met Minister Creed. I've met recently Minister McConnell, Jackie Cahill, the head of the Agricultural Committee. We made a presentation to the last government's Agricultural Committee, and it is a story. There's no switch, or there's no button to flick, to push, that will grant us money immediately. But they had never really heard of us, because we probably as an industry looked at ourselves as a supplementary income / pastime, sort of like you hear people having alpacas or all sorts of, it was kind of a hobby, seen as a hobby. But now it's, you hear of people doing the green cert to get that want to go breeding, people that want the knowledge transfer, all these things. All other agricultural industries had done these for 10 and 20 years. So we are only 2 or 3 years out. And your group, what you're doing is very progressive, very good. And we're on the verge of really turning it around here. Because for the first time ever in the history of the state, are we on the program for government. Sports horses mentioned in the program for government. That took some dogging, some hassle, like the 2 Olympians from Cork, head down and pull like a dog. But it's hard. What are there things missed along the way? Yes, there is. Is there lack of representation in different avenues of funding and that? Yes, there is. But with the government and what Patrick and Michael and you guys are doing, these won't be missed from now on. They won't be missed. And we're at a turning point for investment and knowledge and inclusion in the whole agricultural industry in Ireland. The thing I wanted to talk about, I said to Michael, and I'll be quick about it. We breed horses to sell them. That's really that's what it's all about. There's very few breeders that breed them and keep them and retire them on the farm and bury them on the hill. They're bred for export. They're bred for sale. And to talk about markets, the higher end of the market, there's very little that a breeder can do about the export market. The horses that go to Lanark and Dublin Horse Show exported to America, there's very little that you can do on that. Why? Because that's an international market that you can't really get a hand on unless you want to organize shows or sponsor things, etc., etc. And I think the figures for 2020, a couple of very, very positive things happening. The shipper I would know her quite well, that flies horses to America. In December alone, 70 horses left Ireland. Now they don't include Keane O'Connor's horses that went to West Palm Beach to jump, but 70 horses were exported to America, which is a huge number. And when you put the whole year together, the figures were the same as 2019. That is very, very encouraging for where we are. And I think we have a lot of Irish Americans that went there after the economic crash when all the yards sort of halved really in output. And we have a network over there that is the envy of all the European nations, and long may it continue. But to get back to a more relevant point and closer to home, the one market that is extremely important to breeding is the local market, and also the export market to the local market in England, because they don't have the breeding program that we have. And how can a group of breeders influence that? Well, I would think, being a breeder myself, that maybe 50% of horses don't make it over 1.10 m. And especially if you're breeding young lines or you're experimenting with mares, or it's the first couple of progeny. So the local market, and I'm talking about riding club, pony club, local jumping, gymkhanas, local eventing, hunts, cross country, all things within an hour and a half of where everybody is tonight. That is a very, very, very important market. And this is very important for breeders, because this is where your horses that don't excel as athletes can be sold into, as long as they're straight, sound, and well broken. And as breeders, you can help that market by help shows, help riding clubs, help hunts, help cross countries. Can you imagine if you had in Roscommon and Mayo and Longford, if you had a very healthy pony club, riding club, hunts, and cross country? There would be people that would need horses every year to keep sustaining that, to go jumping, to go hunting, cross country. And we are missing that in Ireland at the moment. I think show jumping and eventing is quite healthy. Well, we need some higher end shows here, but it's quite healthy. But what we're missing is that local meter 10, that someone might jump 10 shows in the summer, hunt a little bit in the winter. We're missing that. Like, I don't think, I was trying to think there, if you take Sligo, Ballina, Sligo, Mayo, Roscommon, Longford, I think it was 11 years ago that we had any horses jumping in any of those 4 counties. And which is a pity, because, you used to have some fantastic shows, but that's just, and I have 15 registered horses every year, and we would be on the road, I would say maybe 25 weeks of the year in Ireland. So county shows as well, showing 3-year-old classes, mares classes, foal classes. And I think sponsorship through HSI is easier to get than what it used to be, because the budget is up since we started lobbying by 2.5 million a year. And it's for the promotion of breeding and production of quality horses. So there's a lot that the Breeders Group can do. And that local market to you'll own that, because it's very close to your own studs and to your own production stables. And I think it's very, very, very important going forward that you look after those sort of lower entry level uses for sports horses within an hour to 2 hours of your house.
Yeah, and actually it's something that's been very relevant to the Mayo Roscommon Breeders Group. Like, if you look at the group getting involved in the Roscommon show and what that's led to,
yes,
that the lads got involved in the show, and then they decided to put on a showcase and get people thinking about actually maybe the more performance orientated elements to it. And John had actually mentioned during the week that it was actually seeing that drew him into the to the group. And then it's amazing how what that local involvement has done for the Mayo Roscommon group, led to their performance show, would have been probably one of the elements in leading to the sale. And like said, taking John as the case study, it was that local show that kind of got you hooked, John.
It was one of the first years of it. It was actually in Castlereagh, and I happened to be down there completely at the Castlereagh show on a completely different errand, and I moseyed across to see this mare and foal on the loose in a behind a Harris fence, and it was something completely different. And there was feedback given from the judge and Patrick on the day, and it was something I'd never seen any other place, and it was intriguing. And I suppose that's what has led from that to Roscommon, and I suppose the sale is something that follows on from that, and the foals being videoed on the loose, which doesn't necessarily happen any other place in Ireland.
There's a few comments that Dervla has mentioned 2 or 3 times there about brood mares, and the comment is, I would like to see if we can have a few comments on how we can increase the quality of our brood stock, our brood mares. Currently, I'm looking at importing stock for breeding from the UK as the best option. From what I can see, there is a complete dearth of understanding on what is required for brood mares. Any comments or suggestions?
Good ones.
But I suppose, look, that's I think.
Sorry, Michael, to cut across you there, but that's actually something in our breeders group that probably in the last 3 years, there's probably an investment of over 100,000 in the breeders group on brood mares.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing in, say, even taking some of the most proactive people on the knowledge transfer program. What has been amazing is often it's very hard in breeding to go out and buy the mares that you want, because your progress can be so slow or incremental. But I have been amazed through kind of off the back, even since the KT program finished, but that motivation, education, connection to what's happening in the industry has resulted in several breeders throughout the different groups that I've been involved in have gone out and made significant purchases. And we often joke, it's not buy the mare that you can afford, it's buy the mare that you can't afford, buy the mare that actually makes you uncomfortable, that it stretches you. But look, in terms of Dervla's question, look, it can be difficult, and a lot of the time the mares that you would like to buy don't actually come up for sale publicly available.
Could be another webinar, Michael.
Well, that's it. And look, you could get in maybe, and look, you can give any of us a call offline and we can talk through that, because that could, it's a whole other conversation in terms of what's required and what's available. But I'm sure any of us here are happy to have that conversation if you want to get in touch offline. One
other little add-on to that is that breeding is not a quick game, and it's not instant success. And like you say, you can't buy the mare you want to land. You have to work your way towards it. So I suppose patience.
I suppose just moving on and wrapping up, I'm conscious of the time. We're approaching the 2-hour mark. Has anyone any comments on? Obviously, I'm sure we're all very grateful for those that have attended and stuck with us this long. When myself and Patrick initially started talking, we thought, wouldn't it be great if even 50 people were free to attend and we just raise a bit of awareness? We had over 150 people registered, and it's drifted in around maybe the 90 plus attendees mark for the past 2 hours. So just, I suppose, to thank those that have stayed with us this far. Any comments from any of you on what people can do to help us to help them?
Yeah, well, Michael, we can't do this alone, to be honest with you. And again, I'm going to direct the question to Barry a little bit on the document that was presented to Horseboard Ireland in a short space of time as well. And my time is maxed, you know, getting this done. And I just think that we've made a lot of progress with the little bit of a document, just 3 pages to highlight it with Horseboard Ireland. And I think it's exactly weeks ago now since it was done. And that's actually the reason why we're here tonight, because it's put the skids under us a little bit, and we've got motivated, and we've started to network. And I have been talking to Barry as well about what's going on. And for me, Barry, you know, there's one thing getting the direct money into Horseboard Ireland so it can be disseminated down through the channels, through the different schemes and initiatives. But can we now start to focus, both with you and your team, with the Economic Steering Committee, the Economic Forum Committee, can we start to really look at this equine farming sector, Barry? And, you know, the money mightn't come directly into you guys, but can we get a little bit of a niche in that committee and start to think about the indirect funding that can come back into the industry? Like that KT program was €2 million. If we can get, and if you look at the funding that went into 2020 TAMS, they did a bit of a profile on it. Like there was 6 or 7 million spent on sheep fencing. I'd love to get the actual format. There was over 100 million spent on facilities in the other agri sectors. And, you know, it's down to GPS systems and fertilizer spreaders. All of that is money from the Department of Agriculture, indirect funding back into the sport horse sector. And I think we really, what do you think about that, Barry? Where are we going with it, and how do we highlight it more?
Yeah, well, the Department of Agriculture, the 2 ministers for agriculture and the 2 senior civil servants in the department said that the money we were looking for, the budget, the HSI budget we started with, that's what we were looking for to put money into, that they will only write 1 check. It will go to the HSI body and for them to administer throughout the country. We've seen it in the annual money that they've spent every year. The other money, as you rightly said, the indirect money that were available for grants, that was sort of a second thought. Being honest with you, Pat, telling you the truth.
That's what we're here to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, yeah, but that's the truth, because I started this voluntary outside the HSI. The HSI asked me to join them. I said I would join them, and so I did. Michael Slattery, actually, who needs a great mention from Ennis and Clare. Without him, I don't think I would have achieved, you know, a half of what we did. He's a fantastic guy.
Yeah, he was.
He's a fantastic guy. But the story about sports horses was untold. Like I remember going in front of the Agricultural Committee, and I'll tie it back to your payments. But you know, there how many jobs? How much turnover? And I was lucky I had Jim Power there, who did work for the government. And he said, yes, I've seen the figures. These are them. It's worth 830 million. It's worth 14,500 jobs. It's very big. And each horse or pony with a saddle or a bridle spends about, I think it's about 5,000 a year. If you add it up, diesel in the Jeep to go to the shows, subscriptions, hay, bedding, vets, blacksmiths. You know, anybody with a couple of kids and a few horses will probably turn it off now. But but that's their contribution to rural Ireland. And so the bigger one story gets, the bigger yours get. One of the reasons we haven't got onto a lot of these schemes and haven't been, equine farming is a great phrase, or hasn't been used, because we didn't ask for it, because we treated it as a hobby. And what is very, very important is to keep breaking through the communication between yourself and the politicians. The best thing you can do is bring them to your stables, bring them to your farms, give them a tour around when it's time appropriate, bring them to your local show. You can't be putting boots on farms for knowledge, to introduce them to, listen, this is an alternative, it's a green alternative. They are going to be gagging for stuff in rural Ireland to keep people in rural Ireland to be keep young people in the country, is supplementary incomes, because you see the green bill that's coming down the road at us. We all know that subsidies for farming will probably be phased out in some way over the next 20 years. What are we going to replace it with? We can't all have mountain bike trails and greenways and pathways or something else. We have to produce something, and the horses is one thing that we can do. So where do I think it's going? I think it's all going in the right direction. Did we miss TAMS? Yes. There were other, but why? We're virgins at this. We're the first time, you know what I mean? Putting together the communication with all the different parties. It's not easy. You know, the thoroughbreds have been at this for 30 years. They're the cleverest, smartest people I've ever met in my life at it. And we've used a lot of what they're doing for it. So I was speaking to Patrick a couple of times this week, and Michael, and they know I have a plan how to. I think we've been successful. I think you've been successful in your lobbying. We've been successful, but we need to modernize it. We need to double it. We need to make it bigger. But again, there's 90 people online here. You can all do one thing. You can all go to who'smytd.ie, say that you're on a webinar. You send all your local TDs an email tonight. Keep in touch with them. Send them pictures. You might feel, oh my God, why do I have to do something like that? It's all communication. You know, unless we tell them and ask them, they won't do anything for us. Repetition of communication, yes.
And John Kerr has actually had just asked something similar a few minutes ago. He said, is there a document or a plan that we want to send out that we can push our local politicians, asking them to support? Exactly
what was sent to me the other day by Patrick.
And that's
tell them what you're looking for, tell them your plan, but also tell them success stories. One of the things I met there is that when we went in front of the various ministers and they said, listen, we're getting, I think it was 4 or 5 million a year. The agricultural budget is 1.2 billion a year. The slush fund that we're getting paid out of is 120 million a year, and still we're not a semi-state yet, and we should be, like the racing is and the greyhounds are. They're in legislation to cut their funding. You have to have a vote, but we are a good news story. Why? We're a green industry. We are a one island body. Our exports are good during the crappiest of times. Pandemic, the exports of horses are very, very strong at the moment, especially lower level horses. Our network is very good. We are horse people. Like we don't have to retrain people like they do sort of for technology and maybe banking and stuff like that. We don't have to retrain people. We just have to keep upgrading our systems of education. We are a good news story. And it's very important that when you're communicating with your local TDs, that you tell them it's a good news story, that, you know, it's just bursting to happen. It's waiting to happen. Once we improve, I see the improvements already. In last week or a couple of weeks ago, we have 3 horses in the 5-star show in Wellington in Florida. You think, how in the name of God will that reflect back here on us? You know, that will, because when you're selling foals now, you know, we have international horses that have come from the island of Ireland. We haven't had that. I'm telling you, we haven't had that for 10, 15 years. We've had some horses that jump 140, 145, and we were happy about it. 150, maybe we had Dougie Douglas, I suppose, was a good horse that was sold here, but we haven't had 3 hit the one show circuit for a long time, and the tide is 100, definitely turning. And you ask anybody, if I thought it was crap, I tell you.
And I guess that's from just touching on your point, Barry, John Kerr's point there. If you are listening this evening and you have a positive relationship or existing relationship with a specific politician or a Department of Ag official or someone who you think would be influential or sympathetic to listening to what we've covered tonight, would you just come forward to one of us, get in touch with any of us, and your support would be much appreciated.
To add to that, if you're talking to your politician, this is a good news story. This is something he could hang his hat on. Don't be afraid. Like, there's something in it for him too, you know?
It's an easy win for them.
Of course it is.
And I just go back to my point. I'm going to bring in some statistics here, like through our foal sale, which is a really grassroots set up altogether. You know, we've improved the average from edition 1 to edition 3 from €2,250 to €5,100 last year. I do notice that some of these statistics are now being used in front of government. So again, more power to the people that are involved in the group and the Breeders of Ireland. If you look at the statistics from the average prices of 3-year-olds at Dover Gold sale last year, there was 3-year-olds, 28 sold, average 22,785. 4-year-olds, 4 sold, they average €24,000 approximately. A 5-year-old, 1 sold 20,000. 6-year-olds sold 28.5. You know, like, compare it back to the beef industry, and particularly with the group here that's actually taking control of the marketing of their product. Great statistics to be going to our politicians.
Well, and that's it. And even before you go to the politicians, even just acknowledging, maybe acknowledging what you've done and acknowledging what you're doing. In 3 years, it means the average person that has participated in your sale has gone away with an additional €3,000 in their hand, which is no small feat in an industry where I would say the large majority of people usually sell their foals or have been doing so below the cost of production. To in a short space of time to create a new sale and in 3 years have increased the amount that the average breeder is going away by 3,000 is fantastic, and you do deserve to be commended. And that's why I was pushing for this webinar tonight. Is I'm aware from my friendships with everyone here that you do an awful lot, and we have a lot of long conversations or late night conversations and messages flying back and forth and documents flying back and forth. But a lot of that is somewhat invisible to the industry. And bad news spreads awful fast, but I thought it was important that all the work that was being done by your group on the equine farming side, on the TAMS side, even I'm sure there was a lot of people that would have heard Barry speak towards the end there that weren't aware of what was being done by various stakeholders in the industry. And I think it's important because an awful lot of what we're all doing, we're doing because we believe in it. And of course we benefit because it's our industry, but we do the large majority of this on a voluntary basis. And it was important to me that this was communicated to the industry so that they knew what you were doing for them and in turn return that support to you.
I appreciate it, Michael. And, you know, with your reach on social media, it's key as well. And thanks for getting it together. Yeah.
Yeah. And just, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say one other thing, Michael. We did sort of have an ethos in the group and always had, and I think it needs to spread a bit more nationwide, that it's not all about bitching and complaining. It's about solutions and finding solutions and rolling up the sleeves. You know, we can all moan and complain about where we are and where we were 30 years ago and whatnot, but nothing will change unless you change yourself and, you know, you roll up the sleeves.
Mm-hmm. Be the change you want to see in the world. Isn't that the expression?
Yes. Solutions.
So be the change you want to see in the industry. And that's, look, for me, this
solutions are unsolved problems.
Like, this is positive. It's not that we're coming, it would be great to be able to come out and say today, well, here's the suite of new equine measures that are now available to you all. But I think it's important to have this conversation, and hopefully in the not so distant future, we are coming out and saying, here's what's now available to you. I want to thank everyone that's contributed to tonight. And unfortunately, it would have been great to be able to press on you a little bit more, Dermot. But in just before we finish up, if anyone wants to just look at the answered questions there very quickly, because it'll disappear once we go offline. Dermot's details are there, email address, phone number. But once we wrap up and finish up, if anybody has missed those, just get in touch with any of us here, and we gladly put you in contact with them. So just we'll finish up there. I just want to thank you very much to those of you who've spoken tonight. Thank you to those who have stayed with us this far. And I know there are a few people in the audience that have been very supportive to all of us here, and to Barry, like Michael Slattery that was mentioned. There's a few other people that in the last few days have been very helpful. Valerie Farrell, Ailish Byrne in particular, that have been kind of mentioning the right people that we should be talking to and moving us in the right direction. So it's all very much appreciated. We appreciate your time and your guidance. So thank you to everybody else, and good night.
We'll update on an action plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thanks very much, lads.
Right, thank
Very
you.
good.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.